Awesome. Thank you, Stuart, and thank you, everyone. Pretty exciting to see a new update to Flexi here, Service Pack 3 for version 12. And it's a good thing. We're going to talk about several new features that I think you're really going to see and like. Some of it, by the way, based on your comments. So thank you, folks, for sending in all your ideas. There's some things in here that happened because of you, and we appreciate that very much. So we'll get started in this thing. And by the way, I think I asked where everybody was from, and I've got one person here, Perry, from the UK. So let's give him a hand. I think he's the farthest away. All right. Good deal. Let's move on here. So what I did was I just put together a little chart here, and I want to make sure everyone understands what we're looking at here. First of all, I'm going to talk about traditional versus subscription updates. So there's two different ways to own Flexi. The traditional way is you pay for it outright, you load it on your computer, and then every time there's an upgrade, you would actually pay for that. So you would, pay maybe a couple of $1,000s for the program, and then you pay several $100s probably for an upgrade, not updates, but upgrade. And excuse me, and that gets you current. And then we also have this on a subscription basis where folks are paying a monthly subscription, and they get their updates and upgrades at no charge because it's included in the subscription cost. So there's some differences that you're going to see here between the service pack for the traditional folks and the service pack for the subscribers. And they're minor, but there's some things here that you probably want to know, and this will help you decide if you want to begin subscribing. You certainly can do that at any time in the life cycle of your program there, okay? So first of all, let's talk about the very first thing, which is send to en route is the first update that's been added to Service Pack 3. What this is, en route is a program also made by SA International. It is probably the equivalent of Flexi for a router table. So if your business is growing and you're running, the 8x10, 4x6, whatever, big router tables, you probably would get en route to run those things. It's a program that's used to drive those tables. And what's good now is Flexi has a button that allows you to send that file directly to en route. So if we take a look at Flexi, up there at the very top right-hand side, you'll see an orange icon, and that is send to en route. So this makes it easy to continue to design in a program that you already understand, and it then allows you to send that design that you have to the en route program where you can put in your paths and all the other things that you need to do for routing on those tables. So we appreciate that they did that. That's a very, very good feature. Another one that I really, really like is one called New Preference Options. Both of you get this. This is really, really good. Let me show you what it looks like. You probably know that when you're setting Flexi up, and in my classes, right at the very beginning, we talk about preferences and what those mean to you. These are just ways of setting up Flexi to do certain things. In the Edit menu, when you go down to Preferences, that's where you set up some of these preferences. And a really nice new addition I think is really cool is right here in the middle. It says Moving Distance with Arrows. Traditionally, we've used just pixels, which is kind of hard to understand in terms of sign making. So now we have added a button that allows you to actually determine the distance that something will move when you use the arrow key. So for instance, I've got this set at half an inch. So now when I click on an object up here and then I hit the right mouse or the right arrow, it's moving half an inch at a time, up or down or whatever. And I think that's a really cool new feature that's going to allow you to get a little bit more accuracy when you're placing things. So a new preference is to move things by distance instead of by pixels, and that's a really, really good thing to have for our sign making, isn't it? Okay. In addition, now we're going to talk about one that is specific to the subscribers. Now, again, like I say, traditional copies, subscriber copies. So this is going to be in the subscription copy only, but you notice it says page and rectangular cut marks for contour cutting. What's that all about? Well, let's take a look here. here's my subscription copy. So let's say I take this star here and I want to add a contour cut around it. So I do like a little contour cut like this, you know, and we can make that contour cut any size. We have a great video on there for you to use. I'm just going to say OK to that. So we've made our contour cut. Another thing that we can do is we can actually add contour cut marks. Normally, at this point, you would send it to your printer, and in the printing side, in the production manager or the rip and print menu, your contour registration marks would show up automatically. Well, both of you can do this in Flexi. You can go to the effects menu, and you can choose contour cut mark right here, and it can actually add the contour cut marks right inside of Flexi, right? So when you're in Flexi right here, you're actually seeing these are contour cut marks for the Mimaki. We have GCC. We've got Roland in here, GraphTex, all kinds of different markers that you can do in here. So both of you can do this in your software. But the subscription folks, we took it one step further for you, okay? In the effects menu, again, we have something here called page contour cut marks. And let me back up a little bit here. They may be a little difficult to see, so I'm going to zoom up. And what you're looking at is when I choose my page here, you can actually see a contour cut mark on the page size. So what you would be able to do is create a page, basically an area, design area, that's a certain design area, then create all your graphics in that design area, and then add your contour cut marks to the edges of that page design or the document. And the reason for this, by the way, is not just because of sending it out through Flexi, but if you're using a third-party software like VersaWorks or Onyx or something like that, you may need to add these registration marks in Flexi in order for those softwares to use them. So this is part of, you know, partnering, I guess you would say, with other software, if you will. So you can actually add page marks in there as well, okay? And then also, let's go one step farther here. We're going to go to the effects menu, and you'll notice there's one over here called rectangular to contour cut marks. So let me show you what that does. I'm just going to take a regular shape, a rectangle shape here, and let's make more than one copy here. Hang on one second. Okay, so we've got several copies of this graphic here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually create a rectangle around this graphic, okay? And I'm just going to size that a little bit, and we could work in wireframe here if we wanted to, right? That would be a good thing. So let me move this up here where I can see it a little bit. Just hang on. There we go. So now I'm in wireframe. So I have that rectangle around this graphic right here, right? Now I can move that rectangle wherever I want, okay? I don't have to put it around all the graphics. I could put it around, say, maybe this part of the graphics like this if I want to, okay? What I want to make sure of is that those corners are outside of my design area here. But here's the cool thing. I'm going to go to the effects menu, and I'm going to say make that rectangle, add the contour marks on the edge of that rectangle. And look what it's doing here. Oops, I got to apply it. Jason's probably online and he's laughing. All right, here we go, rectangle marks, there we go. So I apply that. So now I can use a rectangle to place my registration marks inside of Flexi. So this is cool because it allows you to sort of move those registration marks to maybe a better location, even inside of the graphic, so that you don't waste that edge, that page edge, you know, where the markers are always on the outside of everything. So you can make that rectangle any size you want and then place those markers wherever you want inside of the graphic there. I thought that was kind of a cool feature that's been added, and it's one that I really, really like. Now, both of you, traditional and subscribers out there, will now have access to something we call the Flexi knowledge base. I really want you to either re-review this or write this down. It's just myflexihelp.com. And I'm going to click on mine, excuse me, and it's going to start up my browser and take me to that website. And basically what this is a brand new knowledge base. This is going to give you access to the knowledge of all our texts and all of our experience. You can search for subjects, if you will. There's a getting started, basic steps, what's new. There's PDF guides, you know, if you're interested in color profiling or working with spot colors or the artwork approval tool, you can download PDF files that instruct you on that. There are videos on here that will help you. There's just tons and tons of information that you can find in this piece right here. So just clicking on getting started, and, you know, how do you make your first design job? How do you print your first design? You know, how do you cut your design? What's the license manager? What's the install manager? Nice stuff in here that's going to walk you right through. So if I clicked on design area, for instance, it would take me right to that document online there, talk about the design area, and even give me other references that I can refer to. So I think this is a helpful thing. If you're having an issue or you want to learn how to use a particular feature in Flexi, refer to this. This is a really good capability and was designed with you in mind. So myflexihelp.com, all of you should, you know, go there after we're done here and play around with that a little bit. We've also done some work on both sides here for the animated cut viewer. Now the animated cut viewer, let's go back to Flexi here. And let me just go back to here, and then I'm going to actually take these and, well, we can leave those on, doesn't matter. So I've got my stars up here, and in the Arrange menu, we have something called Cut Order. So if you recall, one of our seminars that we did here, webinars in particular, was we could click on Reorder here, and it shows us the order of the cut. So it shows us I'm going to cut 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever the case may be right there, right? So we can actually create a cut order on here. But there's also in that same menu in cut order something called preview, and this is actually showing you how that vinyl is going to cut. So in this case, it's actually showing me the contour cut because this is a print and cut job. So it's showing me which contour cut first, second, third, and fourth. What we did was we actually took this menu and did a couple of things. You can actually show the cuts by color. So if you're in a vinyl cutting business and you're cutting red and blue for a particular project, you could show each of those separately. You don't have to watch the whole thing animate. You can do it by color if you want to. You can also do it by layer. So if you're working with layers in Flexi, you can show the layer 1, layer 2, layer 3 for cutting order. That's really nice. Okay. Then there's also options in here. I can choose all the colors. I can choose just the contour cuts. And you'll notice the speed is improved as well. So there's a lot of improvements in the contour cutting, or excuse me, in the animated cut viewer. I would ask you to maybe make a file with 2 or 3 colors in it, just vector file, and play with that. You're going to find that in the Arrange menu or cut order, and I would go through some of the new features that are involved in that. I think it's a vast improvement that they've made in that particular option. I'm going to switch over to the production manager here for just a second to kind of show you one difference between the traditional and the subscribers, and that has to do with ICC profiles. We all know that we kind of struggle with those. We're finding more and more that folks are actually making their own profiles now. You know, a lot of folks, I'm doing a color management series class with Muto and other partners, and we're going all over teaching folks color management and showing them how to make profiles. And a lot more shops are finding that they want to make profiles because it just results in better printing. And so we wanted to make it a little bit easier. So in the production manager, under the file menu, we have something called, under setup, we have something called the color profiling wizard. So when I click on that, it actually starts a step-by-step way of creating a profile for you. So it's going to allow you an easier way to understand how to make a profile. And we go through all of this in our color management class, which is really, really cool. So both of you will get that. Now, in the subscription version, if you have the subscription version, what you're going to get in addition to that in the setup menu is something called the Color Profile Analyzer. So I'm going to click on that, and basically I'm going to open up a profile. Let's just go to, say, Muto here, and we'll look at one of their profiles, okay? Click on that. It'll take a second to start up. So this is actually a profile, and this is what a profile looks like. And you can see I can rotate that around. I can look at it. And here's the cool part about this. If you're creating profiles or if you're downloading them from somewhere, whether it's from us or some other source, you could now in Flexi, you have a way in the subscription version, you have a way to look at that profile to see if there's any problems with it. See, if I had a profile in here and I noticed like a big spike or a hole, or it looks kind of like a dent in the actual image itself, I would know that profile is not a very good profile. But we did something even more in this. Okay, I'm going to leave that profile on. I'm going to click on sample data over here. Okay, and I've got to move a couple of things around here, and I'm going to load an image. All right, so just bear with me. All right, here's some demo files here, and everybody's probably sick of looking at the dolls, but I'm going to load them anyway. Okay, I'm going to open up my dolls here. And what you'll see on this image here, and if it's a little small, I apologize, but what you're actually looking at is the dots are representing the colors that are in that image, and the profile is there as well. So I can tell that with this particular image, a lot of the colors are within the color gamut of that profile, but there's some bright reds and some darker blues that are outside of that profile's capabilities. So this is giving me an indication that perhaps with that image, I may need to make some adjustments to it to confine that a little more into my I know for sure I'm not going to get the reds that I expected or the blues for this with this particular image and this particular profile. This is really, really cool, and there's a whole lot more to this feature. I think the folks that have this are going to really like it. It's going to take some study. It's taking me some study, but I think it's going to be really, really nice. It's going to show you some very interesting capabilities. It shows you the curves for your profile, so you can kind of see what's happening. There's lots and lots of really cool capabilities in this particular. These are actual measurements that were made on that profile. Kind of cool. This is the measurement tools. So again, it just shows you the individual curves and so forth, which is nice because it allows you then to kind of see, how that profile was made, if there's any issues with it. And it gives you the ability to kind of give you a little better feeling for whether that profile is adequate or not. So that's a new feature that's been added as well. I like that feature. Now, we'll go back to Flexi here for a second because this is kind of cool as well, and both of you will receive this. When you get ready to cut something, and let me just put another job on here. And it's not just cutting, it's also printing as well, right? Okay. So let's say we're going to send that out to our cutter. These are some little things that actually make a really big difference, okay? So number one, let me minimize a couple of things here. Number one, it looks a little bit different. In fact, at the top of this image here, let me move this around so you can see this a little better. So I apologize, I'm going to resize it so it gets a little more the size that we need here. Just give me a second. There we go. All right, just about got it. Okay, so you notice a couple of things here. Number one, at the very top of the graphic up here, at the very, very top, you'll see an actual printer. You can actually see that, an image of the printer where it says properties at the very top left-hand side. So there's an image of the printer, and then it actually shows you the orientation. It's basically showing you where the cutter blade is located. That's the orientation of the media in that printer. I think that's a neat feature. And that's also reflected on the bottom, on the right-hand side bottom down here. You'll see a red arrow and a blue arrow. And again, that's showing you the direction of the cutting. The red is the direction of the cutting, and the blue is the horizontal part of the cutting. So I think that's a great feature as well. In addition to this, we've added to all of these menus, like, when you change something, like if I change the percentage of the size of this graphic right here, right? And then in previous versions, I exit, I get my job done, and then I come back in to do another job. Well, the percentage stays at 55%. It remembers the last setting that you had. And sometimes we want that, and that's good. Well, sometimes we don't want that. So guess what? We added a reset button now to all of the tabs. So no matter what tab you're in, you're going to see a reset button. So it'll just set everything back to the normal settings that you're looking for. So that way you don't have to remember, is that supposed to be Point 1 is that's supposed to be a 2. You don't have to remember those numbers anymore. We'll just hit the reset button, and it will reset that tab back to the normal settings. So that makes it a little easier than going in and having to type 100%. Just hit the reset button now, and that's going to save you a great deal of time. I think that's a great feature. So all of you will get that, and I think that's a really, really good thing. We've updated the cut menu as well. For the subscribers, we've added a few extra features that I think you'll really appreciate, including cutting direction and things like just options and so forth. So let me show you the difference between the two. I'm going to go to the the traditional one here, and let's click on Cut. And basically, what you see is the regular cut menu here. Again, the reset buttons are all there. That's definitely in there. And I'm going to go to the third tab, and in that third tab, these are the cutting options for that particular cutter, okay? So you'll see a few changes in here. For instance, in the drawing area here, you actually see a pause button, so you can actually send and even pause that particular layer, let's call it, or that particular color when you're printing, or cutting. And that's pretty much where it is. But we've also added, notice a little bit further down, we've got additional advance. So you can actually say, after this job is finished, what I want you to do is don't just go back to the end of the job, but advance the vinyl another inch or a half inch or whatever amount. I think that's a great feature for all of you to use as well. Okay, so that's the traditional one right there. Okay, so let's go over to my subscription version here, and you'll notice a few more options. There's actually that same area here. We still have the advanced, but we also have things like use the same driver for all the passes, or group the layers or colors by driver options, and so forth. These are, even in the vinyl cutting business, things can get fairly complicated when you're working with layers or colors and so forth. And this is going to give you some additional features that you can use with your graphics here. I think that's a really good thing to understand. And there's some other things, like there's also cutting direction. In the last tab over here, down at the very bottom, it says cutting direction. This is original, so it would cut in the original way that the graphic was made. But maybe you need to cut everything clockwise or everything counterclockwise because of the material that you're cutting. Could be sandblast material, could be metallics or something like that. Sometimes you need to cut it in a certain direction to get a better result. So the subscribers also can control the direction that the cutter blade will work, either all clockwise, all counterclockwise, or in the original way that was added to the software. Really good. We showed you advanced after cut. I think that's a great feature. And then finally, for the subscribers, we did one additional thing, which I'm going to show you. Actually, it's called enhancements for graphics. So if you have a GraphTech cutter, we've actually added some enhancements for you. Now, there's no time to go over all of these, but basically what we're doing is you may have been using Cutting Master or some other software to run your GraphTech. These now have all the features, and Flexi will be able to extend what you're doing with your GraphTech cutter. So we added new media sizes. We did things like devices come with pre-installed media types. Some things to make it a little easier, because sometimes with vinyl cutting, you need to set pressures, you need to set speeds, conditions is what GraphTech uses to kind of accomplish all that. Flexi now is going to add some additional options for you to be able to take full control of that particular type of device. Even more devices are supported. So we really appreciate the partnership there, and we're definitely going to help you out on that GraphTech cutter. And perhaps in the future there'll be others that will join us as well. So that's kind of an overview. There are other minor fixes, bug fixes, so forth and so on. There's lots of other things. We could talk an hour on this thing, but we just don't have the time, and neither do you. But we are going to mention one other thing. You really need to go to a Flexi Live training event. We have them all over the U.S. We've got one in Long Beach on the Queen Mary coming up. So if you're interested, just go to learnflexi.com/Queen Mary. We've got two in Texas. We've got one in Dallas, one in San Antonio at the end of the month. If you're in those areas or anywhere near it, Contact Resupply. They're sponsoring that, and we would love to see you there. We also have one in Boston coming up, the 2nd and the 3rd. So the 2nd is a basic Flexi Live seminar, and on the 3rd is the color management seminar. So if you're interested in color management and you in the Boston area, or you just want to go visit Boston, there's plenty of room there. Just go to learnflexi.com/signup, and you can scroll down to Boston and sign up for that class as well. So we appreciate your time today in all of these. As Stuart mentioned, this has been recorded. We're going to clean it up a little bit and then put that on the web for you to review as well. And just a reminder, if you go to the SAI.com store, you can also get a full training DVD with these features as well as many, many others that are contained in there to help you learn the product. So, Stuart, with that, we'll turn it over to you again to MC the questions, and we'd love to answer some questions for you. So just shoot away.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. Yeah, a lot of new features coming up. Let's see here. So it looks like we have some questions already in the chat window there. Kind of wondering about the difference between traditional license versus a subscription.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what are the differences between the two?
Right. Yeah. So the main difference is that some folks prefer to pay for the software upfront. So what they do is they pay a reseller, and the reseller will provide that to them, and then they load it on their computer and so forth. And they pay the full price for the product right up front. And then over time, when updates or upgrades happen, they must purchase those upgrades. In the subscription, it's month to month. So for a $50 subscription, for instance, if you pay on the yearly basis, then you get the full software. The softwares are identical in terms of names and so forth. But on the subscription side, because you're paying monthly, there may be times when updates come out that might have a few features that will not appear in the traditional side of the software. So subscribers generally don't actually pay any kind of upgrade fee. It's included in the subscription fee on a month-by-month basis. So think of subscribing as being like spreading out your payments over the years, and instead of coming up with, say, $500-600 for an upgrade, you're just doing it month by month. That's basically what's happening there.
Okay, and then those new features get rolled into subscriptions, and then after there's more of them, then they are rolled into the traditional product.
That's correct. Yeah, they usually show up in the subscription product. I know this is kind of new to us as well. Typically, sometime out, they may go into the traditional product as well, but they're always in the subscriber products immediately.
Okay. All right. So if we have any questions about either something that Mark's gone over, any of the new features in Service Pack 3, or if you just have any questions that you've just been holding on to since the last webinar, just itching and waiting to give those to Mark, you can go ahead and type those into the chat window there.
There's one that came in, is there a way to save your Flexi desktop icons so once it will it's set, it will always open up with the same positions every time, even when you open old jobs? That generally does happen. Now what happens is because those icons are actually sets of icons and repositionable, you can move them from the top to the sides and so forth. When you change resolution, or perhaps when you minimize or change, let's say, the window size of Flexi, because those are floating icons, they will actually move. So they're not permanently locked in place, unfortunately. It's something that we got in our last webinar as well, and I'm certain that the programmers have heard already and put that on their list of things to perhaps do in the future. So. Okay. We had one here, when will this be released? It has been released. What happens in software, which is a very good thing, and I want to compliment SAI on this, is they roll out a release. So if you're a subscriber, what will happen, or traditional user, what will happen is if there's an update for you, a window will pop up in your software, and it will actually say there is an update. Do you want to install that? So when you see that window pop up, when you start Flexi and you're connected, needless to say, to the internet, you'll see that pop up, and then you can actually follow the instructions and install it. But what they do is they do a rollout. And what that means is they'll roll it out to a few hundred, and then a few hundred more, and a few hundred more. And the reason is they want to make sure that if there's an issue with the software at just a few hundred people, they can catch that, stop the release, fix it, and then start racing again. So I want to compliment them on the method which they're using here. So if you haven't seen it yet, just pay attention. It'll show up, and I'm sure you'll be shown exactly how to get that update.
Okay. So it looks like we've got another question here from Brad. He said, how do I set up the preferences to touch the spacebar to bring me back to my full artboard window? I had it before without having to reload Flexi.
Yeah. So this is a question from either a Gerber user or something like that. Typically, they love that space bar. So right now, at default, when you hit the space bar, and I just did, okay, you hit the space bar in this software, then it just brings up what's called the pan, where you can move the whole artboard around, and that's not what he's looking for. What he was looking for was maybe hitting the space bar to blow up all the objects on the screen to full size. So if I had one even out here, like this, in my zoom tools right here, there's a zoom all objects, and that just blows everything up like that, okay? So how do you do that with the space bar? Well, you do that by going to the edit menu, the file menu, and working with the workspaces. So right now I'm in the default workspace. And so what that is that's where the icons are located, and it's also the shortcut keys. So the space bar is considered a shortcut key. So if you go down to Customize in here, we're just going to choose Customize, and this now gives you a list of all the shortcut keys. And I know that icon over there is a tool. That's what we call the icons, tools. So in the View menu over here, I want to say select all the objects, zoom all objects, and I'm going to hit the space bar right now to tell Flexi to define the space bar and do this action. Now it's already defined as pan, so it's telling me, do you really want to make this change? And of course I do. So what I've just done was I've reassigned, I've told Flexi, make the space bar the shortcut key for zoom all objects. I'll click OK here. Okay. So now you see the window. When I hit the space bar at this point, it blows it up and zooms all. It's the same thing as zoom all objects. So I can assign a shortcut key to any tool or menu item in Flexi, and that's a great feature to have. So thanks for asking that.
Okay, thank you, Mark. So let's see here. Oh, we have one from Sam. It says, I use a 4K monitor laptop and have a lot of icon and manipulation points are very tiny. Is there any way to adjust to a normal size?
Yes, that's actually something that was one of the improvements in the Service Pack 3. So you should, when you get Service Pack 3, see that improvement immediately. It changes the quality as well as the size of those icons, Sam.
Wonderful. And then Brett asked, also, how can I lock a font to be married to a job so I don't have to write down the fonts I used before after I have created outlines?
Let's see. How can I lock a font to be married to a job? Lock a font, so probably embed it, and then so that I don't have to write down the fonts I used before after I've created two outlines. So I'm not really sure what that question is. It's a little difficult to understand it. Not sure what's going on there, but let's say we have this font right here. When you save the file, it should save the job with that font. I think what he may be saying, and I think I've figured it out now, is if you go to the Arrange menu and you choose Convert to Outlines, what that does is that changes the font into a path, and so it tells Flexi not to remember the font style. So all you're going to see is just the image right there. What I would say in that case, if you want a little help with this, would be in the File menu over here. Right over here. You could actually go down to, let's see, is it File? It may actually be Edit. Yes, it's Edit. So in the edit menu, you might want to go to job info. And with this particular job, you could go into the comments over here and say, this is Arial, Arial font or whatever. Just type in a comment for that job info. And then even though this is converted to outlines, the next time you open that file, if you want to know what font style that particular one is there, you would just go back to your edit menu and job info, and then you could actually see the font style right here. So that might be one way to work around that if you're working with outlines like that.
Okay. Brad, I hope that answers the question for you. And then let's see. John had a question about an error code. It says when he's trying to install, he gets error code 6006. Do you know off the top of your head what that error code would be for?
No idea. That would be one for our tech support team. I would say you need their help in that particular case. There's a lot of different error codes some are Windows error codes. In fact, most of them are just Windows error codes. So I would say work with the tech support team on that one.
Yeah, let me type in the email right here. That's just esupport@thinksai.com. You can send it to them. They'll be able to help you out and know what's causing that error. And then we had a question from Diana. She has Flexi Cloud, and she's wondering how she can get the update.
Yeah, everybody has Flexi, and there is really no such thing as Flexi Cloud. The cloud features are actually just the things over here where you turn them on and off, right? It's the stuff over here on the right-hand side that pops up. So that's the cloud part of Flexi. And basically, both the traditional and the Sense About version 11 in particular, from the traditional and the subscribers are both connected to the servers in Salt Lake City, so via the internet. So when your internet is on, basically what happens is you see these icons over here. So first thing I want you to test is just make sure those icons are showing up. And generally what will happen is the server detects your version as well as your license number and all of that sort of thing. And what literally should happen is it should pop up a window that says there's an update available. So you may want to check again with our tech support to see if there's anything happening that might be preventing that. But generally speaking, for most of you, it should just pop up and tell you there's an update available.
So I think she has Flexi 11 or Flexi Cloud. Right. Oh, there so she says she has Flexi 11.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, I don't know if Flexi 11 was automatic or not. I think it was, but I would check again. I would call our tech crew here and let them work through that issue with you. So they're probably a little more in tune with whether or not that happens automatically. And if not, from 11, if you're going to go to Flexi 12, that is definitely an upgrade. And generally, if you're a subscriber, that would happen at no charge. But if you're a traditional user, then that's a payable upgrade.
Okay, thank you, Mark. So we have one more question here from Brad. He said, how can I change material size so that all items can be plotted on 15-inch perf material versus 24, moving the pinch rollers, etc.?
Okay, how can I change the material size so that all items can be plotted on 15-inch perf material versus 24-inch moving pinch rollers? I hope that makes sense. Yeah, it's a little hard to understand there, Brad, but let's see what we can do, okay? Let me turn off my cloud here and give us a little thing. So first of all, I don't think you're talking about the Flexi side of this. I think you're actually talking about the production side of this, if I'm not mistaken. So let's just draw a few items in here. So if you're going to go print or cut this, and I assume you're going to print this plotted on perf material, I'm assuming I don't know if you're cutting or printing, but it doesn't make any difference. I'm just going to go to cut. When you're getting ready to cut here, right at the very top of this menu where it says material, this is going to say roll. Or it could have these different sizes in here. And at the very bottom of that, it says user define. When you turn user define on the right-hand side, this is now Flexi assuming that this is 54-inch material, or in your case, perhaps 24. And you can type in, 15 here. and it will actually change that material to think that there's 15-inch material in there. So what that's doing is that's actually telling Flexi, regardless of the size of material that's in there, I want you to assume that there's 15 inches of area to use. So again, what will happen, you have to be kind of careful here, because if your file gets too big, if you resize this and start making it bigger, then what's going to happen is it's going to want to start tiling, so be careful with this. But, maybe you have some sort of application where it has to stay within that boundary. You can just tell it what the boundary is, and it will force it to be that size, okay? I hope that helps a little bit.
Okay, looks like we have another one. Oh, Kyle just mentioned, he said some of the stock blue colors print purple. Is there any way to get around that?
Yeah, most of the time in Flexi, that's a profile and media issue, right? So let me just click on, say, a blue here. Okay, this is as he put it, stock blue. And what it actually is an RGB blue. So if I go up here to the very top and I click on my color mixer, it tells me that that blue mixture right there is RGB, and this is the definition of that color. In the color management class we're having in Boston, which I wish you would go to, we actually show this a lot. And basically it's being able to do soft proofs. So a soft proof is actually based on the ability for Flexi to define a certain monitor, a certain input profile, and so forth, a certain media profile. All of those things are defined in your soft proof. So you might want to try this, Kyle, and this is something that I would say do on a job-by-job basis, not a permanent basis. But if you might want to go in here and instead of RGB, just change that to LAB, okay? And basically that's sort of telling Flexi, ignore the RGB values, use LAB, which is try to be as simple as possible. It's a way for that color to be communicated a little more accurately to the next device that it's moving to. So when it goes from your monitor to your printer, it's communicating this new color here. You might want to try that. That could perhaps work for you to give you a little bit more consistent color for certain items in there. But I would do that job by job. I wouldn't change those on my swatch table at this point.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Mark. I think that's about all the time we have. Been about 45 minutes, but just want to thank everyone so much for attending today. We'll be having our next webinar in, oh my goodness, it's going to be in August. So we're going to be in August, the second Tuesday of the month. We'll be sure to send out an email, let you know when that is and what the topic's going to be. And we'll be taking this recording and maybe putting in a couple links, trimming it up a little bit, and we'll be putting that on the SA International YouTube page. And we'll be sure to send you all a link to that recording as well, so you can review it anytime you like.
And just Stuart didn't know this, but we have some training that we're doing in early August. It may actually be mid-August or later August for this particular webinar, but we definitely will have one in August.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Mark.
You're welcome, and everybody have a great sign day. Make a lot of money. Talk to you later.
Goodbye.